Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Two Tutors Talking. Can't wait for this to get popular so I can just call it Triple T. So, we are here to kind of have small discussions for parents about tutoring, the benefits of tutoring, and how we can better support you each and every day. Hello. I know we had some major we just got crazy over here. We're trying to
Mhm,
put computers together. This is together. Everyone's all insane. So
mhm,
we just try to
mhm.
do the best that we can. So, and as our guest, I'm going to have Miss Veronica Reid. Hello. All
Hello.
right.
Hi,
From
Audrey.
Reach. Yes, help from like Reach Scholars. I can't speak today. Reach Scholars Tutoring LLC. So we're going to just mention a couple of things that we're constantly seeing in our tutoring sessions, especially lately, because we all know it's close to the end of the year. Everyone's like, oh, I can chill and relax. Memorial Day is coming, and that means I can just relax. No, some of you guys still have your final exams. Some of you
Yeah,
guys are still have to do some other closures. Maybe some people have to go to summer school. So a lot of people are trying to get their vacation time in there, but we're still trying to keep that learning going. So
yeah.
we're just here to kind of show some of our trends. So Veronica, hi again.
Hi. Yes,
So
yes,
what are some of the trends that you're starting to see in your tutoring sessions?
definitely. So some of the trends as a reading specialist and reading tutor, some of the things that I have been seeing is just difficulty with comprehension. Um, After they're reading a story, maybe they're not remembering certain story facts or story details when they're retelling. Having some issues with fluency, um, decoding, what to do when you come to a word that you don't know. How do you solve it? What are those strategies? Um, or just maybe when texts are becoming a lot longer as you kind of improve and progress in your reading levels, then it gets a little bit more. It may take a little bit longer to tackle it. Maybe they're kind of feeling a little bit more tired. Their stamina has not been built up for particular stories, or reading a long time. So those are some of the things that I'm seeing, and those are some of the things that we work on when I work with students in our reading sessions. Because my big thing is, if you're reading a story and you're having trouble with comprehending it, then that really lets me know, okay, either the level is too high, or there's some strategies that perhaps is causing you to not be able to solve those tricky words to have that understanding. So we need to work together to get your level, to work on your level, and to help improve you where I see those gaps rather.
And that just seems like what we really want to identify, like especially that last part you said, where's the gaps? And it
Mm-hmm.
just seems like I'm not saying that parents are not seeing everything. Parents can only do so much, just like teachers, just like
Yeah.
everyone else. That's why we always say it takes a village to raise a child. So it's not just the immediate family, it's also, the grandparents and godparents or any kind of supporters whatsoever of that child, because it seems like everybody sees a different gap or a different habit. Because, as teachers, we'll say, your child is very quiet, but at home the parents like, whose child are you talking to? Because it's not my child. My child is like off the rails when they get home. But and that's what I'm saying, everyone sees it, like see the same child in a different situation. And just like academics, a lot of people don't know where their gaps are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how can you help a parent to kind of like identify that, does their child have a gap? Is it like just small nuances that they should be kind of on the lookout for, or if it's something major before it gets too big? Do you have any suggestions?
Very good, very good. So, one thing for sure is when you have a moment where you're having your child just to read to you, on a story that may be on their level, or maybe it's a story that's new, um, and ask them questions, ask them some comprehension questions. Who are the characters? What is the setting of the story? What happened in the beginning, middle, and end of the story? You can even ask them, what is the problem in the story? And if they're having gaps in that, then that's going to let you know, okay, they don't really completely understand the story fully. They're missing some gaps in the story. And, this may be a reason why they're having trouble in school.
That's true. So now we kind of have like, I'm talking to you because you have like the elementary, like you have our young little babies and they're in the early stages.
Hmm.
And for me, I have more so like the secondary, the middle school, the high school, and even some adults, especially the ones that just graduate from high school, that there's like a trend that seems to be going on as well. And I also notice it, especially with those transitional years. So,
Hmm.
like the kids that are leaving, or possibly in a few weeks, might be graduating from fifth grade, and now they're going to go into sixth grade. And a lot of people are just like, "Oh, there's not that much of a difference." I'm like, "Yeah, there is."
Hmm.
Not only you're dealing with hormones, hello,
Ooh, yes.
changes, but you're also dealing with the way that it's presented, because they could be in a school that was like a K through 5, or they could be in a school that was just up to fifth grade and they've learned that routine for a long time. And now they got to learn a whole new routine with a new teacher that they've never seen before. Not like, oh, I saw you around. Like they've never seen that teacher before. They don't know the atmosphere that easily. And I think that was also hurtful when the kids were away from school for a while.
Hmm.
And then when it came from after the pandemic, when people were starting to come back to school, they had to relearn a routine, not only because they graduated, per se, from middle school to go into high school. They're going into a new building, new administration, new everything, new way of doing it, more advanced learning, more advanced questions. So it seems like I'm starting to see a trend of people, especially now, because I used to say, oh, I usually don't get that many kids during the summer. And
Hmm.
now a lot of people that are making those transitional fifth to sixth grade and also eighth grade to ninth grade, people are starting to say, can you help my child? Because I want to make sure that they're okay. And
Hmm.
that's good,
Hmm.
because a lot of parents usually they'll just be like, oh, she's a tough girl or he's a tough guy. But I think after this year, a lot of people noticed that their kids were struggling because the foundational piece that was missing 2 years ago it really hit a lot of kids hard this year.
Hmm.
Have
Hmm.
you kind of seen that as well with like your younger kids?
So for yes, I have seen it. I have seen it, and the things that I'm also seeing is that those students who even before the pandemic were having trouble already. So, there
Mm-hmm.
were some gaps there already. And so when the pandemic hit, that even kind of added on to the learning gaps that they were missing already. So you have students who had already been struggling, and they probably needed a tutor prior. And so now it's kind of like, oh wow, I'm really seeing the difference here. And then there are the other sides to it where maybe the child didn't really start school during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were homeschooled, and now sometimes the parents might feel, well, you know what, there might be some things that I'm not sure if my child is really understanding. I think I want her to get, or him to get, some tutoring, because even though I'm homeschooling, there might be some things that I'm not doing at home. And then sometimes I get parents who also say, we are working together, we're doing homeschooling, but the reading is just something we clash. Sometimes parents clash with the student, and the child may take more um, understanding and learning from a tutor or another teacher. And the parent can notice that right away. And I've had students where they may, when it comes to math, they get it. But when it comes to language arts or reading, they hate it. And the parent is like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm going to hire a tutor to work with that, because that is something that that's not my strong point.
And it's like now that we're in the tutoring world, because both of us are former classroom teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like it's easy for us to say, all right, my child's struggling, let me get a tutor, because we're so used to that terminology. But
Mm-hmm.
what about parents that wasn't really raised with that word in mind? It was just like, if you need help, oh, my child's struggling, then go to the teacher. But sometimes the teacher is the one that's like, why do I have to stay for coach class and repeat everything I just said in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the class, and I got to do it again to help a child? It's almost like you're asking the child to be like, all right, this is the place where you struggle. Go back to that struggle. Okay, how
Yes,
you feel now? I'm still struggling. You know?
it's true.
So
And
it's kind of like, how can we educate parents a little bit with using the word and not feeling icky? I guess that's a great college terminology. Um, of getting a tutor. Like what why
yes,
it's
yes,
not just for rich people, guys. Like we're out here. We're definitely out here.
right.
What do you think?
Right. And so, and I think because in like as you mentioned, when we were in the classroom, I know for myself, I did not, as a teacher, when I was done with the day, I needed to de-stress and go home and be with family and things like that. So you don't feel like wanting to do additional work as a tutor as well, So the advantage for us being tutors is that now, that's what we can focus on, and we can provide that one to one with a child. Whereas if the child is in the classroom, the teacher, the ratio was like 20 to 1. So it's kind of like,
Mhm.
okay, well, little Billy is being seen by the teacher, in small group and things like that, but they can't necessarily get that one-on-one because the teacher does not have time. Life is so crazy as an educator in the classroom that they barely have time to have lunch. So,
Right.
it's going to be hard for them to give that individual one-to-one time every day. Whereas what parents can keep in mind is that the benefit is your child is getting that one-on-one attention, versus maybe being the 19th child in a group of, like, in a class of 20 or 25, and it's not a bad thing. um, Even I can just remember when I was younger, and knowing of friends who, their parents were like, okay, you know what, we don't really know this math, let me get you a tutor. We've made it through high school, why am I banging my head against the wall? So
Right.
that's the
Right.
thing. It's like, parents definitely should not feel like it's a bad thing. You aren't a failure because your child needs a tutor. In fact, you are getting ahead of the game and you're realizing, okay, my child is having some issues, let me make sure that they're getting that one-on-one support that they need. And then that child is going to thrive. Like, yesterday, we have this thing in Virginia called the Virginia SOLs. And one of my students was so happy, she told me she passed her Virginia SOLs. And I was so happy about that because this was a child who was below grade level when I first started working with her. So those are those things that make me say, hey, you know what? Having that tutor really is a benefit for your child. If nothing else, you're going to see it. It may take a while. It may take 3 months. It may take a whole year,
Mhm.
but the parent will see it in their child. And so that's the benefit.
And that's key. You're getting value.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're getting an extra person that's coming in, that's giving you that extra assistance, but you're getting value. Um, and then you also mentioned that was just spot on. It's going to take time. Like
Mm-hmm.
these kids are not just going to get it automatically, and it's going to take some time. It's going to take um it also depends on how the child is or the student, because with my older ones, how they finally click, because
Yes.
everyone doesn't click at the same exact time. So I think a lot of people kind of forget that when you're in the classroom and you want to do, like, say some people are doing group classes or group sessions, and it's great to do like study groups and all that once in a while, but if you're doing the initial instruction, it is hard to learn with the masses, and education hasn't changed. It's amazing. I saw this commercial the other day that the way cars are designed has changed. The way that we use phones has changed. But the classroom setting is exactly the same. Other than a dirt floor, it's concrete. You know, like single desks, but the design of the desks are exactly the same. So it's when it comes down to have that person to kind of say, all right, breathe, your child can do it, you can do it, let me help you process, let me
Yes.
help you through the step, let me help you with this, so I can give you that notion, that which is not even a notion, it's a real thing, that you can do this, like you can
Hmm.
excel, you can benefit from this. And I
Yes.
know it's not an easy terminology, and I know some people financially, you just can't afford it. But
Hmm.
when you
Hmm.
do get these free services before you have your child start into it, and I know it sounds weird coming from a tutor, I'm talking about other advantages, because some people can and some people can't, but everyone should deserve to get assistance that they need.
Right.
So if you are going to go for free services, else, for me, not, um, ask questions. How often are you going to have it? Is there going to be a designated person for each kid, or is it going to be a constant rotation? What happens if
Hmm.
my child really works well with this one person? Can he or she continue to work with just that one person?
Right.
And then also the timing of it. A lot of kids, especially mine, they want to work after school. So they
Mm.
can't really get that free service. Or if they do work after school and they get off early enough, they can't go to those big corporation buildings because most of them close at like 8, sometimes 8:30. So the last
Hmm.
appointment is going to be 8 o'clock, and some of them are still at work.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, all right, well, if I want to have that assistance, and you might have somebody that they're not open on Saturdays or on weekends. That's why it's like I always say, like, go for a private tutor. There's various people, there's various prices, but it is going to be, you're paying not only for the hourly or whatever their time limit is or time frame is, you're paying for the value. You
Yes.
want your child to understand that. You want to, if you're an adult learner, you want yourself to understand it and be able to progress and grow with it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
these are just a sum of the things that we're starting to see. Like, I think that word tutoring shouldn't be like shung, like, no,
Exactly.
tutor
Exactly.
all of a sudden. But everybody's not the same.
Hmm.
Like, where's two gorgeous young women here?
Yes.
Yes. But we're also very intelligent, know how to
Yes.
break down concepts. And we're not asking for you to pay for a Maserati or pay for our, trip to Hawaii. We are basically using our knowledge, our gift. I mean, trust me, anyone that goes through education knows that it is a struggle.
Yes.
And even as a teacher, there's a lot of teachers that are thinking about leaving. And you thought we had a teacher shortage before? Wait until next year.
Exactly. Hmm.
So, and you have no idea who's going to be your tutor, who's going to be your teacher. Because
Right.
I hear stories from my current clients. The reason why they have me is because they're like, I want to learn this, but I can't because my teacher went on maternity leave, which is perfectly fine. I'm like, you're going to have a baby. I don't want you having a baby in the classroom.
Right. Right.
you know, or oh, my teacher decided, after Thanksgiving, she never came back or he never came back. So I feel
Mm.
at a loss. So, with those things being said, a lot, there's a huge gap. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's not because the kids in the classroom all year with the same teacher doesn't mean that, oh, their kids are not learning. There's a lot of other factors. Teachers are leaving. I had one kid last year. She had 5 different teachers last year
Ooh. Wow.
in one year. How are we expecting her to learn? How are we expecting her to carry something over from middle school to high school because she's a transit kid,
Oh
you
my
know?
goodness. Wow.
And then you're bringing that deficit. So now it's my job to
Hmm.
help with that deficit, to
Right.
help her feel confident, not feeling overwhelmed because it's a lot of information, especially with math. There's formulas out the wazoo. There's multiple steps, there's multiple ways of getting the same answer. And sometimes we have to figure out which way the teacher wants it. So,
Mm.
like when you as a parent, you learned it a particular way, right? Because now there's so many different ways. You got Singapore math, you got Eureka math, you got, this learning skill, you got that learning skill. And
Oh
when
my
you as a
gosh.
parent, you teach the same way that you learned. But then all of a sudden, when the child brings that paper home and it has a big F on it, you feel defeated as a parent because you're like, wait
Right.
a minute, how did we get it? But inside, you're like,
Right, right. I've seen
and
that.
you're
I've
like,
seen that.
I'm like, it's not we. It's like, how did I get an F? Like, what's it about?
Right, right,
And,
right.
and then you just feel like a failure because now you look at your child like, I messed it up. Like, how did I mess it up? Because that's how I learned it. So
Right,
I feel like you
exactly.
want to say something on that. Go ahead.
I when you mentioned about just the different ways of the different types of math that's out there, and I wanted to ask you, and it just popped in my head. Do you remember touch math?
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember that. I remember that. And like you how the like sometimes the teachers would teach that and stuff like that. And so I just thought that was so I'm just curious, what did you think about that? Because it seemed like it seemed like a simple way to do just the addition and or whatever else you can do with it. But
Mhm.
they don't even talk about that anymore, and there's like so many just different ways of doing it of just the math. And I'm just like, why don't you just let the kids do it the way whatever works, let them do that, make it easy for them,
It's a combination of what the district wants to pay for
Hmm.
and also what is cheap, what's easy for everyone to do. So before
Mm.
I go into this, I just noticed that one of my former students, Andrew, is here. Just wanted to say, hey, hey, Andrew. I've been seeing all
Yay.
my former students today. I was at the gym and I'm walking, and all of a sudden there's a person just walked right on the treadmill next to me. And I'm like, all these treadmills. And this person happened to sit right next to me. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to stay focused.
Right.
Um, but when it comes to a lot of the programs, and I'm going to be truthful, this is just my perception. A lot of things come as a stem from Montessori learning. Montessori does a lot of tactical learning, putting the beans and how can I arrange it. But what public school does, it takes bits and pieces of Montessori learning and they try to contract something together. And it's not working.
Mm.
It's really not
Yeah.
because, like, I understand Montessori goes up to possibly sixth grade, maybe eighth grade, depending on the skill set. But once
Hmm.
they get past eighth grade, that's when they start really getting into the algebra, with the variables and the numbers and so forth. But it's
Yes.
almost like the idea that the kids are learning to put things into bits and pieces, that's good. But then a lot of the bits and pieces were missing. A lot of the kids
Hmm.
were throwing fits and they're throwing things in the trash, or some are eating. I'm like, it's plastic. What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to kill yourself? And it's just like, and it's just like something that works. All of a sudden, like you as a teacher, you try to make it work, and then all of a sudden, the district will be like, oh no, we found something new. This is so much better. It's like online and it's so much better. But you took
Yes.
away that tactical piece. Like when a kid can actually pick up something and say, this is a representative of one. And like Montessori, they have that. They have a number and a color. So
Hmm.
it's like they're learning not only by this is a representative one, it kind of represent with a color, especially that's how they can draw in like the younger students. And they're trying to do that with like public schools and everything, but it never, they don't stick to it. there's always something new and shiny that they want
Yes.
to get to. And I can recall when I was in, I don't want to say the name of the district, but I was working at this other district, and I was my third year, and we went through three different programs in 1 year, to the point that I had to go to my principal. I was like, dude, I can't. I just can't. Um, I was like, can't we just stick with one thing? Just one.
Right.
I love you. I love the hustle. You want, yes, I am your biggest supporter ever. But can't we just stick to one thing to the whole year, please? Or a semester? Just give me a semester.
Right.
Because this whole jumping around, if it's making me crazy, what do you think is happening to the students?
Exactly. Getting them
What do you think is
confused.
happening to the parents? Because I know another district this year, by tutoring a kid, midway through the school year, they decided to change their program. And my kids, ooh, they were troopers, but you can see the frustration in their faces. They're like, I don't want to ever go to Paris because a lot of the word problems had to deal with Paris. Or had to
Wow.
deal with a windmill or something like that. They're like, I don't want to do anything with a windmill ever. And I'm
Oh
like,
my.
I'm sorry, but it's frustrating. And if you think it's
Mm-hmm.
frustrating for the kids, it's frustrating for the teachers, because we have to be the enforcer of it. And we have to, if we don't, we get dinged, or we get
Yeah.
reprimanded, or we get put in a punishment bubble
Mm-hmm.
because we're not following protocol. But yet we know what's good, or we have a good idea what's good for our students, but sometimes our hands are tied.
Mm-hmm.
So with that pressure, I'm the type of person, I put a lot of pressure on myself, but trust and believe, we're not trying to make up some stuff just to make your kids go crazy, because sometimes we're just the ones that have to literally take a program. We get it. We have to break it up, like totally disassemble it, and try to assemble something that the kids can understand and be challenged at the same time.
Oof.
A lot of people don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and
Yes.
that's the kicker.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kicker. So the long answer, everything just keeps getting flumped around. And I bet you next year it'll be a completely different curriculum, or it will be back to the original two curriculums ago
Right.
and just renamed. But it's an innovative, no, it's the same stuff. If you've been around for a long time, you'll realize that it's the same exact thing. They just put a different
Right.
name on it. They just
Mm-hmm.
rebranded it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the insanity of what's going on. So how do the kids stay? We as teachers just really just try to break it down as best we can. I mean,
Yes.
that's all we can do.
Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly.
the teacher, if it doesn't work, you can have a tutor. And we'll, because especially having a tutor that was a former teacher, we know how to say, yeah, we had to disassemble that too. Why is my
Mm-hmm.
teacher make it so much difficult? I don't know. Because it's really not, it's not that difficult. Let me
Right.
show you this one way. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
Mm-hmm.
we do. We're like the translator, if you want to say.
Yes.
We're the translator of the teachers in your classroom.
That's right. Exactly.
So,
That's a good way to say it.
right. So, speaking of which, and we did talk a little bit about transitioning kids, the ones that are going from fifth grade to sixth grade, or even like, kindergarten to first and second grade. That's a transition as well. Um, and then you have your kids going from eighth to ninth grade, and even the ones that are about to finish high school, they're making a huge transition going into college.
Mm.
So, as we're talking, I want your perspective on the younger front, because you're doing something this summer to kind of lessen that gap a little bit. Yeah, we want them to relax, but we want them to keep learning. So
Yes.
tell me, or tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do for this coming summer.
Thank you. Yes. So this upcoming summer, I am going to be having a virtual reading summer camp, and what this will be our second year hosting it. We did it last year and got a lot of great feedback from it. So this year we'll be doing it, and it's going. The dates right now are going to be July 17th through the 27th, and so it's an 8-day camp. So we're adding a couple of more days to it this time, and it's going to be really cool. We're going to be focusing on phonics and fluency, and so much more. But it's just an opportunity for kids ages. We're going to have two groups this time. We're going to have ages six to, I want to say 6 to 9, and well, we're going to be focusing on ages 6 to 11, but we'll have them in two groups. So that way it'll be more age appropriate stuff. So we'll have something for some younger kids and something for older children. But we're going to be having live sessions focusing on phonics and fluency, literacy games. We're going to have guest author readers. Last year we had a guest author reader, and so this year we're going to be having two guest author readers. We're also going to be having an art project that's going to be happening with an art teacher. And we're just going to, make this a fun thing because, kids work really hard during the school year. There's a lot going on. And so with this, we're making reading fun. A lot of times students feel like, oh, I don't like reading or I hate reading. But the purpose of this is just to make it a fun way that's going to help improve your child. It's just an opportunity where, we're improving your child's reading in 2 weeks. And there'll be more information that's going to be coming out. I'll be sharing more information next month, but that is just something that you can look forward to.
Nice. See, and that's, you're making it fun, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, you're not taking their whole summer. I
Yeah.
know for a
Yeah.
child, when you're like, yeah, you're going to go to, oh, you're taking my life away. Like, no, we're not taking your life away. It's okay. They're going to be dramatic, but at the same time, they need to keep their skills up.
Mm-hmm.
Because when everyone talks about the summer slide, I know it's usually a word that you generally hear in the month of May. They always talk about, oh, it's the summer slide, the summer slide. It's a real thing. Like,
Yes.
I know having my students and just having a 3-day weekend or even like a 4-day weekend, right? They come back and I'm like, do you know your name? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
happened? Why are we struggling with understanding how to multiply 4 times 5? Why are we looking in the ceiling? What's
Right.
happening? You were
Right.
gone for 4 days. It's just 4 days. So imagine what a whole summer is going to be.
Yes.
And like you said, you're only doing it for how long again?
It's going to be 8 days. 8 days, keeping it
Eight
simple.
days.
Those last 2 weeks of July. So by that
Yes.
time, a lot of people, I feel like a lot of families are doing their vacationing starting next month, the beginning of July
Mhm.
that way. So when you come back, it's like it's getting your mind ready.
Exactly. And that, I
Mhm.
feel like that's the perfect timing, and especially for kids, just trying to get them situated. For me, it'll be the same thing. But right now, like I said, I'm starting to pick up more on my transit kids, and they're
Mhm.
just like, okay, we're going to start at the end of June. I'm like, really? Don't you want a break? And they're like, no, we're off because everyone is off. Like, I don't have just people in Maryland. I have people in all throughout the US.
Yes.
And just with those, my United States kids, it's like some people are off already, or some people, their last week of school is actually next week or this week. So obviously it makes sense for them to do all that.
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
me, again, I'm going to be looking at what people need. And all right, let's try to do like some small grouping and some small coupling. I always say coupling, but it's really just grouping and pairing. And just work on some of those skill set, just to get you ready, because that's what's hurting a lot of kids because they didn't have algebra 1 2 years ago, and then they were in algebra 2 and they weren't feeling as strong as they would. So those are basically what I'm looking into. That is for like the student side. And then of course, for my adults, anyone that is a teacher that's thinking about becoming a tutor,
Mm.
I'm doing my mastermind. I made my announcement last night during my live,
Ooh.
and I'm finally going to get right into the mastermind again to help break down this whole concept of being a tutor for novice people. Like you've never done it before. I was completely motivated from what is it, the Math Teacher Side Hustle virtual event that I was
Yes.
presenting this weekend, and just to hear the responses from people, they're like, I feel better. Like just simple things like stand, get out your own way, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing that can happen with our kids when they're just like, oh, I'm never going to get this. No, you are. It's
Yeah.
going to take practice. Just like what Miss Veronica said earlier, it's going to take time, but it has to take action from you as a parent, and it has to take action from the student or the child.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
Exactly.
So, if anything, this was, two tutors talking. I can't wait for us to be famous so I could just say triple T. Um, I know I keep saying that, but I'm like, no, seriously, it's a real tongue twister.
Yes.
But for the most part, if you notice in Miss Veronica Reid, she has a link tree there. Just
Yes.
make sure you just go and contact her. Go for Reach Scholars Tutoring LLC. You can
Mm-hmm.
do a general search on Google to find out where you can reach her, so you can get her website, you can get everything, but you can also go to her link tree with all her social media events. Same with me. You can go to my Solo 2 account. And I know everyone's like, what is Solo 2? I've been getting that quite often. It's very similar to Linktree, but everyone was all ablaze with it back in the day. So I'm still sticking with it because I really like them and the service. But it has all my social media links on there. It's going to have the videos and just how you can get in touch with us. So the reason why we do the whole Two Tutors Talking is to really help parents, give them some resources, give them some ideas, so everything about tutoring will no longer be foreign to you.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks
Yeah.
again, Veronica, so much for being here. I greatly appreciate you.
Oh, you're
And
welcome.
final words, if you want. Any final words?
Oh, final words is definitely keep checking us out, and be on the lookout for some information that we'll be sharing soon about our projects. And the summer reading camp is coming really soon. I'll have that information up and going in June.
Yes. And guess what? Even though the school year is winding down, the school year is not completely over. So if you still need someone just for like, can I tweak something in time for a final exam or anything that an assessment that's coming up, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see you guys at the next episode, which will be 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. I keep forgetting what day it is.
Yes, that's
Every
okay.
Wednesday at 11 o'clock, come and join us. All right, take care, guys. Bye
Bye,
now.
guys.